Bootstrapping is a way of thinking about the hierarchy of funding.
Okay.
And creating your business in such a way as to take on as little outside financing as possible.
Okay.
And therefore you remain in complete control and as a complete owner of the business, and you can make any decisions that you want to.
All right.
Now, as a general rule, if you can bootstrap a business, it is usually best, at least in my personal opinion, to go that route before exploring other avenues. Okay? And the reason is simple. You're not preemptively selling off your company.
Right.
You're not giving up control. It may be slower. So, sometimes people take on venture capital or loans in a race to accelerate their business or make it grow as big as quickly as you possibly can.
But sometimes being big makes you really, really, really slow.
Yes.
And I think in that situation, it's really difficult to start if you can't just see something that needs to be changed, change it, and go. If you've got all these people to answer to, it's probably going to be slower to be big.
Right. And that's actually a concept called communication overhead.
Oh, yeah.
Which we'll talk about when we get to the working with other people. It is a huge benefit to be small, to be nimble, to be quick, to be able to turn on a dime or stop what you're doing quickly and start doing something else. That's a major benefit. I mean, a lot of companies originally started doing something completely different than what they now do. I mean, this is actually a concept that Eric Ries, who is a guy who writes a lot about startups and software companies and all these things, calls it a pivot of where, you stop doing one thing and then you turn and do something else.
Yeah.
Small companies can pivot quickly.
Yeah.
And, there are a lot of actually really good examples of, I think Flickr, which is a successful online photo sharing thing that was acquired by Yahoo a couple years ago. I think they started as something like a dating site.
What?
Yeah, and it wasn't working.
Weird.
But they saw something in what they were doing in terms of, the photo hosting and the optimization and all of those things.
Funny.
It's like, well, let's focus on that. And they pivoted and, changed the product, and they were able to do that very quickly.
Funny.
And it worked really well.
Yeah.
And so financing, you get complete control, you can pivot, you can be a lot quicker because you have less people to communicate with.
Yep.
You could just do it. That's my preferred strategy. If you can do it by yourself, if you can do it without a lot of outside financing, the better. And it follows kind of two things. And one is there's a old Roman proverb that I think is really good here.
Okay.
And translated, it says, "Happy is he who owes nothing." And that's very true. If you don't have any outside obligations, particularly after you reach the point of sufficiency.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the personal MBA has been bootstrapped since day one. And really the only thing, outside financing has been, equipment on credit cards, which actually, in the grand scheme of things was actually very small. Now that we've reached the point of sufficiency, it's really cool because we can really work on whatever we want, whenever we want to do it. And we're not beholden to outside people telling us what we should do next, which is actually really grand. Not just from a financial standpoint, because we get to keep what we make, but from a control standpoint, in that we get to work on what we want to work on, who we want to work on it with, which is really great. And the other thing too is bootstrapping is wonderful from a learning standpoint too.
Oh yeah.
Because you kind of have to be chief cook and bottle washer. Like you have to do everything.
Yeah.
And some companies that try to grow quickly will take on a couple $1 million in venture capital, and then will try to hire a team, a large team of 8 to 10 people to try to build this thing very quickly. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But by taking on a lot of these things, you actually end up learning the business a lot less than you otherwise would.
By taking on other people, you mean?
Yeah. So bootstrapping, you have to do more of it yourself.
Yes.
But doing that's good, because then if you hire employees or you get outsourcers or whatever, you have enough experience with what it is you're actually doing that you know how to look for a good one.
Exactly.
Somebody good to work with. Or, you know when somebody's not performing up to expectations or not doing, what it is you actually need them to be doing. So, there's another quote by Steve Wozniak, who's actually the lesser known founder of Apple Computer. He was the engineer side. Steve Jobs did more of the design and the selling. But Steve Wozniak said, all of the best things I did at Apple came from A, not having any money, and B, not having done it before ever.
Oh, cool.
He designed basically the world's first personal computer. Nobody had ever done that before.
That's nuts.
He worked at HP doing electronics and things, but he'd never build a computer company. And so there's a lot to be said from building something up from nothing, keeping your expenses really low, reaching sufficiency very quickly, and then that's an extremely powerful position to be in. And you can do a lot of things with that. So personally, if you can bootstrap your idea, don't take on outside funding, don't take on outside obligations, reach the point of sufficiency as you possibly can, that sets you up to do all sorts of different things in the future that will be really grand. That's bootstrapping.